journos here outside. We've been booted out. You know what we're like. We're always the last
Not
one.
a Jody Journos video for being kicked out.
Yeah,
so.
we're always getting kicked out everywhere. We're good. We're well behaved lads, but we just spend a bit too long. we do a lot of work, us guys at National World, Shields Gazette, Newcastle World. Now do a little bit of everything. Right. You've seen the live, I would imagine, that I've done. That's probably the analysis that you guys need as the lights go out even further. Dom, you're right in the dark there.
Shadow.
Yeah, you've seen the analysis of the game. Of course, Newcastle United through to the 5th round. Won ugly, did what they needed to do, managed to get through. I think you guys have probably had your fill of analysis. You've probably seen the game live on TV. What you want to hear is kind of what Eddie Howe's been saying about things, what Kieran Trippier has been saying about things, about the transfer window and about where things currently lie. These two guys, as you know, I was out there on the live. These two guys were in with Eddie Howe. I don't know which one of you wants to start, but I kind of, from me as a fan, not just a journalist, I want to know how Eddie Howe feels about the whole situation, whether he believes there's going to be incomings, and certainly whether he thinks outgoings could become an issue, or even if it is seen as an issue going into the last few days of the window.
Yeah, I think Eddie Howe carried on the theme from Friday's press conference, where he was quite open about things transfer-wise. He basically said the same message about Jamal Lascelles, who's out injured tonight, and he was asked about Miguel Almiron as well. He stressed that, as well, something goes on in the background. He stressed Miguel Almiron is actually ill. I thought that was an interesting way of putting it. He is actually ill. It's not anything more sinister than that in terms of transfers or potential outgoings.
He's sick at the prospect of having to go to Saudi Arabia and leave Newcastle, isn't he?
But then he basically said, Eddie Howe, no guarantees that Miguel Almiron would stay at the club. So, bit stronger. He said it's the same message as I put out yesterday, but I thought, listening to Eddie Howe in the press conference, I thought it was a little bit stronger, particularly on Miguel Almiron potentially leaving the club.
In what manner? So you think the way your take on that was that he was a little bit less sure that Almiron would stay?
The message yesterday was, I hope he can stay. He didn't say that today. He just he didn't stress that as strongly today. He said a bit less unclear. There's a possibility he could leave.
Oh, okay. Jordan, take?
Yeah, I thought it was it was a cauterised pass. I thought Eddie Howe slightly changed his stance from yesterday. So when he was asked about the two players, so he shut down Kieran Trippier and then he was asked about Wilson and Almiron, and he said hopefully they'll stay. But he almost, with the Joe Linton stuff, the contract stuff, Joe Linton, he used the term, it's a possibility Joe Linton could leave, and he's almost flipped that tonight and said there's a possibility Almiron could leave, which I found very interesting. So I walked away from the press conference on Friday thinking that there would be no departures. I'm slightly less certain of that after speaking to Eddie Howe after that today.
Because I think it's nice for you guys, because you guys were sitting in there with Eddie Howe and everybody will see the comments, you may even see the videos, but it's nice for the people out there to get a sense of what the feeling was and what you could see from the nuance of how he answered things. And one thing that you guys, when I met you straight after the press conference, you sort of said there was differences the way, sorry, is somebody shouting and bawling on the phone here behind us? Maybe he's probably a bit more interested than what I've got to say. But I thought you'd sense that there were changes in tone and changes in the way that Eddie Howe answered. One of you guys said to me there was a very awkward silence at one point.
Yeah, there was. Yeah.
What was that question? Explain to everybody who wasn't there.
He was asked, would you like the transfer window to close here and now, and would you be happy? And then it was an awkward silence. He said it's a clever question, and then basically said yes, he would. He'd like the transfer window to end now, which would mean no incomings for Newcastle, no major incomings anyway, and no real outgoings in terms of the first team, just Javier Manquillo. So yeah, it basically tells you all you need to know. If anything's going to happen in these final few days of the window, looking more likely it's going to be a departure rather than an incoming.
Doesn't sound to me, the way he's answered those questions, that he sounds like a man who's settled in the position that Newcastle find themselves now. Of course, he's a happy man that they've managed to keep their season alive in many ways in everything but the Premier League and get themselves through to the 5th round of the competition, last 16. But by the same token, it felt almost more significant tonight to be talking about transfers and talking about what could potentially happen. I think the first thing a lot of people out there would have noticed was Miguel Almiron not being there, and I think the reaction to illness tells it all. That a lot of people were wondering, is he really ill? Is he going to be going out the exit door? Of course, regular watchers of the Geordie journals and people who read things on the Shields Gazette, Newcastle World, will know that aware of the information that Al Shabaab agreed that deal for him to go to Saudi Arabia. It's just been a case of whether that would get pushed through. I think Eddie Howe now probably finds that he'll know a lot more than what we do and a lot more than what everyone else does, and he'll be uncomfortable and looks uncomfortable to me in the fact that he thinks he could be about to lose one of the handful of forward players that he's got at his disposal, one who he uses very regularly.
He's put the onus on the club, so that he said he wants to keep him, but he's put the onus on the club. He said this yesterday about if it makes business sense to sell him, it's up to the football club. But Eddie Howe clearly wants to keep the player because, look, if Newcastle go and sell Miguel Almiron in the next few days of the window, they're going to have to go out and sign a replacement. I mean, we're all hypothetical this, but throw it to sell Almiron, what position do you go for? Because, yeah, they need a midfielder, but then they also leave themselves ridiculously light it on the right-hand side as well. So what do you do with that potential money? Because either way, they're still going to leave themselves light whether they let them go or not. I think Eddie Howe, as I say, would make sense to keep him, but as is with football business, we've talked about it before, Almiron 30 next month, etc. He's got a lot of value to his name to go now. Will Miguel Almiron's stock ever be higher?
No. Possibly was last summer. Would be the only argument, but he's since scored a Champions League goal, and I don't necessarily think his stock is lowered in the season that he's been here.
No.
So what I would say is it makes that's the position they find themselves in. Getting rid of Callum Wilson, which we discussed in the longer video we did this week. If anybody wants to have a look at that, we talked in depth about these situations. Kieran Trippier will never have the same value as what he has now. Callum Wilson is unlikely to, and Miguel Almiron is unlikely to, but it's just the position it leaves the squad in. If you get rid of certain players in certain positions, they all have different values in different ways. Kieran Trippier, because he is a talisman, a leader, it would be like losing a real major component of the progress, a key figure in that progress, and just purely from his attacking output this season is incredible. The Callum Wilson one would just leave Newcastle United woefully short in an area where they'll be woefully short for much of the season, and they can't continue like this, because if getting rid of a Wilson and not replacing him, and I think Almiron falls into this category, getting rid of an Almiron and not replacing him, and it's not the not replacing him bit that's the problem, would be a very unambitious move. No matter what you think can happen in the summer, you can't let a malaise set in. I think keeping hold of an Alexander Isak and Bruno Guimaraes becomes much more difficult if Newcastle United let this season float along and end up finishing 10th and outside of Europe. So I think they've got to play a really important balancing act. And really what it comes down to is the money worth more than the ambition this season? I think it's a balancing act. As we have cars creeping along behind you and people shouting.
Doesn't want to be
phone.
in the video, this car.
Yeah. So it's all going on.
Every time we film outside the ground, this.
Yeah, it always does.
Paris is the last.
Everton as well.
A little less intimidating than the Paris one, where there was dafties left, right, and centre trying to get involved. I don't think they'd seen somebody with a selfie stick. You'll hear this conversation better than we can. Anyway,
Either way, Trippier. Big stuff on that.
Yeah, so he spoke for the first time, didn't he?
I think what was telling, bit of probably behind the scenes, you may have seen the Radio Newcastle interview, that was almost, by the looks of it, Liam, orchestrated by Kieran Trippier himself.
So I spoke to Matthew Raisbeck straight after, because it was happening while I was doing the live, so I managed to catch Razor, who conducted the interview and put the piece out for BBC Newcastle, and it was Kieran Trippier who requested to speak to the press. That was a player who wants to get his message across, and that was the act for me of a true leader. That was act of a player who, of course, may have had his head turned to some degree, but now realises his position as a leader and is standing up and explaining to fans who deserve an explanation as to what the situation is. Sure, says he's committed as ever, and will always give 100%. I think even if his head was turned in some respect, I think he's the type of character and type of player and type of leader that I don't think that ever could have been doubted. I think he was always going to give absolutely everything for the black and white shirt, or green shirt as it was today. This Jordan, you quite obviously pointed to me.
Yeah.
I think at one point I'd said, I'm not sure Trippier or Bruno have passed a black and white shirt. And you went, well, they have plenty of times today.
Fulham shirt.
Yeah, black and white shirts. Never mind all that rubbish. Kieran Trippier. I think it was a sign of a real leader for him to come forward and do that. Of course, there'll be a lot more talk on this kind of stuff. You may have your own views out there, whether you think it would have been value for money. For me, the money was irrelevant. I think it was about losing a leader, and Newcastle United need leaders at this point in the season. They've fought much of the season with massive amounts of adversity, whether that be from injuries, whether that be from decisions, whether that just be from the schedule or cup draws or anything. It just feels like a season of adversity, and they need all of their leaders to be fighting. And Kieran Trippier for me is one of those. I'd say you've got others like Callum Wilson who are in that group, but I think his situation is slightly different. And then if you can get a replacement in for Wilson or Almiron, I think it's not out of the realms of possibility to see. You could get rid of him, but it's got to be a replacement. I don't think you can go into the end of the season expecting a Harvey Barnes who's not kicked a ball since September for good reason to suddenly come in and play week in, week out and fill in for Miguel Almiron. I think it's a big ask. We've seen Anthony Gordon. I mentioned it in the live, nobody really reacted to it. For a young lad, I know he's been flogged this season, but for a young lad, I've never seen somebody blow like he does after 60 minutes. And that's not a direct criticism. He's been flogged this season, but they've just had 2 weeks, and Newcastle visibly tired after 60 to 70 minutes today. It was noticeable, and I think if they go to Villa Park and do that, I think they'll get turned over big style on Tuesday night. And that's not trying to be too negative about things, it's just what I saw today, and I was actually surprised by how much they tired today, Gordon and Isak in particular. But that comes on Eddie Howe. I mentioned it in the live. For me, in that game, I probably shouldn't have went on and on about the game, but just that little thing for me was, and it's a slight criticism of Howe in these situations, is that I don't think he uses everything at his disposal. I think he could have made substitutions earlier today and give people a rest, knowing that the game was coming on Tuesday. I think that was one of the main criticisms. So you guys, let me know, you guys, what do you think about Almiron and Wilson and Trippier in particular?
What, losing them?
Yeah, thoughts of losing potentially.
I don't think
Lascelles it's a no-brainer, isn't it? The blow.
You can't afford to lose any players unless you've got an actual improvement.
Sorry, before you say that, so the Lascelles one, I want to go back on that because it's something that wasn't talked about. Obviously, I've read all the stuff that came from the press conference. If you didn't catch the video these guys did, there's loads of important stuff in there. Lascelles, he actually said, correct me if I'm wrong, he said, I'm not even sure if he's out of contract at the end of the season. I thought that was quite revealing. Yeah. I don't think anybody else picked up on that. I'm not seeing anybody talk about it. Did you do a bit on that?
We talked about it yesterday. I took it, and this is not...
Sounds like he's got an option, doesn't it?
Yes, that's what I took it as.
So it doesn't sound like he's out of contract anyway, so that's even more of a no-brainer, that you keep a player who's performed really well. The other one's Domlin. You couldn't lose. You couldn't lose without a replacement, could you? Like you say.
No. These are such important players. I think Callum Wilson is almost the most irreplaceable one, if that makes sense. I know we've spoke about. I think in the summer you could almost afford to lose him. Right now, you absolutely can't, because he's not fit at the moment. He'll play. If he does well, he'll play another 10-15 games between now and the end of the season. But he's a player who will score goals if he's in the side, and I think that's priceless really in what Newcastle need at the moment. We saw, you mentioned Alexander Isak, as good as he is, does tire in games, and a large reason because of that is there's no other player to come on and no player to just take the pressure off that last 20 minutes. And it's no surprise that Newcastle drop off a cliff in an attacking sense. Although I thought...
What about today though? We haven't played since Man City. Does that not surprise you a little bit though?
Well,
am I being harsh?
They had a week off.
They had a week off. Literally, they had a full week off. Then they did training last week.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's no reason why players should be dropping off a cliff at 60 to 70 minutes. That's my opinion. I don't know the reasons for it exactly. And I get there are, there's reasons potentially because of the start of the season. But I was surprised actually.
Yeah, a little bit. I actually thought the last 10 minutes when Fulham were actually pushing, the game became a bit stretched. Newcastle showed a bit more the final 10 minutes. Looked like they could have made it 3-0. But I just back on the Callum Wilson thing, I don't think he's a player Newcastle couldn't afford to lose, even though every time he gets injured, the sort of Twitter storm is like, oh, we need rid of him. But I'm a staunch Callum Wilson supporter, I think he should remain at the club. Certainly until the end of the
Until you've got
season.
time to bring about a proper replacement. Really.
Because they need, look, in an ideal world, they need 3 strikers. We spoke about it before.
They do, yeah.
Chris Wood still hasn't been replaced. Absolutely no Premier League side should be going into, as good as your striker is in Alexander Isak, should not be going into the second half of the season with 1 senior striker. It's lunacy. And Eddie Howe even said that yesterday. He said it doesn't make sense, and I agree with him.
Jordan, thoughts?
I think if one's going to go, Almiron's the one. For me, after, but maybe I'm reading too much in Eddie Howe's comments, but I thought after the match tonight, I thought there was a strong suggestion that he could go.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Where that happens, don't know.
We know that deal's on the table for Newcastle.
Yeah,
It's just
does the player want it?
Yes, that tends to be the suggestion that we're hearing, isn't it? It's the player not necessarily wanting the move.
Yeah,
It's turned him sick.
It has.
I would
Trip the RBI. I'm not going.
I would. Yeah, on Almiron, I would sell him, but as I say, we've all said it. I would sell him, but there's got to be a replacement lined up. And where you go, do you go and sign a midfielder, that number 8 position, or do you go for a right forward? I think they're light in both areas, but you sell Almiron and you've only got Jacob Murphy left. Probably need someone that ideally can. Is there anyone out there who can play right wing and a number 8? I'm sure there is, but it probably costs a bit of money anyway.
Anthony Gordon probably.
Well, take him out of it.
He's the backup striker, the backup.
He's
backup everything.
Anthony Gordon did play a number 8 in Chelsea last
Did
year.
he scored as well the last day of last season. He played as number 8, yeah. In Longstaff's role, didn't he?
Yeah, Trippier price list. I mean, I think that's off the cards now, to be honest. Bayern Munich have signed a
He's just shut it down.
right
Trippier
back.
himself.
Yeah.
Trippier himself tonight.
Yeah, I don't
killed
know what
that.
Trippier said. Yeah.
He killed that. Yeah.
No, he
did.
said it's done.
Okay.
And he said, "There's nowhere else."
It's over. Sorry,
Effectively, paraphrasing, "There's nowhere else I want to be, and I'm absolutely committed to this."
Yes.
So
If he's coming out and he's orchestrating that as well, it's not.
asked for it.
It's not like the words are being put in his
Yeah,
mouth
yeah.
or he's been grabbed in a mix zone. He has come out and said, "This is the message."
Well, it was
I
the
want
same
to
yesterday. Eddie Howe put out a message, didn't he, where he got asked about Trippier after this question. He said, "Well, there's a few things I want to say on a Kieran situation." He was like, "So hopefully want to keep him." Before then, he shut down and said, "Oh, the negotiations are finished." And then he also said that in no circumstances did Kieran Trippier want to leave this football club or have any conversation of leaving the football club. He's very, very committed. So, yeah, I think the fact that them two now have spoken quite heavily on that means that that's done. It's just the Almiron deal for me, as I'm saying. I think maybe that one is not quite finished, but then at the same time, maybe it's maybe it is. I mean, it just makes it a very interesting few days, because as I say, I came away yesterday thinking that the exit talk was over, but I feel like it's been fueled again tonight, and I think it does make it an interesting few days heading into the final day of the transfer window.
Yeah, I think it could be one where Newcastle are almost putting everything in place to get rid of Miguel Almiron and are just ready to give the green light if they have someone ready.
So on the
to come
flip
in.
side of that as well, Eddie Howe yesterday was talking about we're preparing, we're lining up deals.
Yeah.
So I wonder if Newcastle, I wonder if the Almiron
Need
deal
that to be ready
is
before
dependent.
anything.
Yes. So I wonder if Newcastle have made, again, this is hypothetical, but it would make sense what Eddie Howe was saying yesterday about lining up deals. That if they know they can get a player, then Almiron's
Yes,
the one that they
because Saudi
sell.
Arabia is not on your doorstep. You need everything in place. I mean, I suppose Saudi transfer window, you'll know better than me, Liam.
30th. So it's the night of Aston Villa.
Right.
Is it?
So I think I looked into it again. Apologies if I'm certain this is right. I think Saudi is the 30th, so that has to be done by Tuesday. Is that Tuesday night? Would be
Right,
Villa.
yeah.
Yeah, that has to
Yeah,
be done
so
by
they need it.
sometime around then, around when Newcastle are playing at Villa. The Turkish transfer window, which was the one which related to potential the Sells deal. I think that goes on
Really,
well.
yeah,
That goes
yeah.
well into February.
Yeah.
There are a few windows that extend into February. Turkey was being one of them, so there could still be links in that respect. But that's no good for Newcastle United because they couldn't replace if anybody went beyond the date in England. So yeah, I'm reluctant for us to go on too long tonight because it is getting late and it's always a difficult upload when it's a bit long.
11
As we know.
o'clock.
It's 11 o'clock.
It is 11 o'clock and we're outside Craven Cottage and we fancy a pint. I did actually mention on the video before, I said I'm your gaffer, so it doesn't matter that we had a couple of pints beforehand.
You
Never
can't say
happened.
that.
It never
Somebody asked us, they went, "Have you had a pint?" And I said, I think the person who asked in the live, I think they'd seen one. because the way they were asking, they were like, "Have you had a pint?" Wink. I was like, "Aye, maybe you spotted me."
Haven't had one.
That's what I said. And I said, cheapskate me was the one who was served pints and didn't pay for one. Because somebody asked how much is a pint in Fulham, and I said, I've got no clue because I bought the coffees on the way down.
Oh, that was classic. He looks after us, Lee.
So we're the bad influences.
But I'm going to buy one for the lads now. Don't know if Joe Buck's going to get one. He's waiting down there. He's waiting so patiently for it. That's another lad who works for the Shields Gazette, who I was shouting at earlier in the live to get involved with Kieran Trippier.
Got him in trouble.
I did, I got him in trouble. But you've got to do these things, such as the life as a journalist, right? I think we'll probably just wrap it there. You're going to see plenty of us over the next few days. Transfer window coming up, Aston Villa, the pre-match at Aston Villa as well from these two guys alongside us at Benton. But yeah, we'll just keep the videos coming. We'll try and do a few more shorts, and we'll keep the lives coming as well. There'll be one from Villa Park. So like, comment, share, subscribe. You know what to do. Click the bell, and we love the conversation. Get involved. We love doing this kind of thing. Although we'd probably quite like a pint now. So like, comment, share, subscribe for all your Geordie Journals content.